alaikum and welcome to my India lecture. Today, the topic, whatever I would like to discuss, the transferable lecture credit and its opening and operational process or procedure under the domestic and global due diligence. First of all, I think in order to clarify the issues is very smoothly and easily, I segregated the video in different topics, subtopics. So number one, we should know. I think we should know what is a transferable letter of credit, and what are the features of the transferable the letter of credit, which is different from the commercial commercial others LC. And as per the UCPDC 600 Article 38, what is the transferable letter of credit? Number two, what are the advantages or benefits of the transferable letter of credit? And what are the different types of the transferable letter of credit? And different parties which are involved with the transferable letter of credit, and what are their responsibilities in these LCs? Transferable LC, different terms and conditions what we should to follow to operate the transferable letter of credit, and finally under the due diligence, global due diligence and the domestic due diligence. And finally, the offering and the operational issues under which work for process issues of the transferable letter of credit and the record keeping. And finally, on case whichever is mentioned in order to clarify the LC transferable letter of credit operational and what are a parties can do or not to do. Now we are going to do what is the transferable letter of credit. A transferable letter of credit is one where at the request of the beneficiary, that means first beneficiaries, the LC is made available in whole or the part to the another beneficiaries. It is usually done where the first beneficiaries is not the actual manufacturer of the goods, and the goods is outsourcing from its other parties. Then the transfer letter of credit is to transfer to the secondary beneficiaries, which is called the transferred the credit. When the on credit is transferred by the first beneficiaries in order to the second beneficiaries, then the function or the activities is called as the transfer the credit. And the bank that makes done this transfer is called the transferring bank. On the contrary, the non-transferable LC, what do we mean by the non-transferable LC? The non-transferable LC does not allow to transfer the letter of credit to the another or to the others beneficiaries. And learn about the transfer letter of credit, how they can simplify the international transaction for both the buyer and sellers. I would like to clarify what is the features of the transfer letter of credit. Number one, a transferable letter of credit is a special type of transfer. Is a special type of LC in which the terms is specifically stated or mentioned is the transferable. The LC, the terms are transferable must be mentioned on the LC. Transferable letter of credit permits and the initial beneficiaries, that means first beneficiaries, to transfer some or all of the credit they are due to the another party. That means second or third or fourth beneficiaries. Transferable letter of credit are used in certain business deals, not for all kinds of a business, to ensure that the payment is made to the supplier or the manufacturer. Actually, in aspect of Bangladesh, in the garments manufacturer, garments sectors, this type of LC is very common applicable. Where the buying house, the brokerage parties or the intermediary parties who collect the order from the buyers, and due to the lacking of their manufacturing unit, they contract with the parties who are the manufacturer. And finally, the manufacturer complied the order. And in this sense, the transfer letter of credit is a very important, plays a very important role in the garments business. The parties involved in the transfer letter of credit, in addition to the bank, the applicant, that means the buyer of the goods or the services, the first beneficiaries such as the retailer or the broker. I have already mentioned the buying house in aspect of Bangladesh. And the second beneficiary such as the supplier or the manufacturer. These are the common parties in the transferable letter of credit. And these are the common features of the transfer letter of credit. Number one, the transferable the terms of the transferable must be mentioned on this type of LC. And in this case, the LC which is permitted the initial beneficiaries to transfer some or all of the creditor to the another beneficiaries or another parties. And this type of LC is not common to all types of business deals. It is used especially for certain types of business. In order to certain types of business deal, this is applicable. And here, the first beneficiary, second beneficiary, first beneficiary means the retailer or the broker, and second beneficiary is the final supplier or the manufacturer. And the first beneficiary is sometimes work as the brokerage. And in Bangladesh aspect, it is known as the buying house. As per the UCPD 600 article number 38, what is the transferable letter of credit? As per the article 38, the transferable letter of credit is the special type of LC in whose the transferable terms are specially mentioned, and it is issued by the SWIFT MT 722/20. Now, I would like to simplify the term, the transferable letter of credit. First of all, an applicant who is the actual the buyer or buyer, which is known as the applicant, contract with a first beneficiaries or first party to collect and to order to purchase a consignment. And as per their contract, the applicant go to his or her bank, so which is known as the issuing bank, and issuing bank issues an LC in favor to the first beneficiaries. And the first beneficiaries, and this LC is issued as per the MT code 720, where the LC is allowed to transfer from first beneficiaries to the another beneficiaries. And accordingly, the first beneficiaries goes to his bank, which is known as the transferring bank. Actually, these are the nominated bank of the first beneficiary, and they request the transferring bank to issue the transferable credit into single or several beneficiaries in order to comply the order. And accordingly, the transferring bank issued the one or the on a single or the a number of LC are issued in the second beneficiary. So it's collectively known as the second beneficiaries, and it is allowed by the issuing bank in this type of LC. Here, the applicant, first of all, application, and the issuing bank issue a transferable letter of credit in favor to the first beneficiary, and first beneficiaries go to the transferring bank, actually which is the nominated bank of the first beneficiaries, and they request the nominated bank to transfer the LC, and whenever the nominated bank agree to transfer the LC into second the beneficiaries, then this nominated bank is known as the transferring bank. These are the whole procedure, or this is a special type of LC as per the UCPT 600 article number 38. But now the question is that what are the advantages or the benefit of the transferable letter of credit? Actually, both the buyer and the seller, that means importer and exporter, can benefit from the added flexibility and the reduce the risks involved in the transferable letter of credit. Because the first beneficiary, whenever has no the manufacturing unit, it is not possible also for the first beneficiaries who actually take the order by conduct a contract with the buyer. But they has no the manufacturing unit and no facility to manufacture. There it is not possible for him or him to comply the order, and to otherwise on the other hand, the second beneficiary, the actual manufacturer, has no communication with the buyer. So this process is allowed the flexibility, and also reduces the risks. The beneficiaries, the buyer, actually not connected to the actual manufacturer, and the actual manufacturer not connected to the buyer. So they order not to conduct between the buyer and the actual manufacturer. But the first beneficiary, that means who act as a broker, has a good relation or the communication with the buyer, and he or she easily originate or reach the order between and make a contract between them. So this type of flexibility is allowed to the allowed to the actual manufacturer to comply the business to comply the order, and they also the first beneficiary, that means who act as a broker, can take a benefit from this. So this the type of LC is very important and very business beneficiaries for both the buyer, both the first beneficiaries who act as the brokers, who are the second beneficiaries who are actually the manufacturer. From our discussion, we can easily clarify that there's the advantage of the using the transfer lateral credit. It reduce the risk. It's increase the due to the flexibility. It easily conduct the business, and it's also must be efficiency. Reduce how to reduce the risk. Transfer lateral credit help the spread the risks involved in the international transaction among the multiple parties. Due to the multiple parties are involved, so they all the parties take the risks, and the risk is segregated, and finally the risk is reduced. Transfer lateral credit also allow to the easier financing, as they can be used to obtain the credits from the multiple banks. Multiple banks are directly involved here, so they are interested to financing. And also this due to, I've already mentioned that how the this LC is very flexible, and due to the flexibility, how it advantage to the exporter and the importer. Transfer of letter of credit also simplify the logistics of the international transition by consolidating the documents and the payments. I have already mentioned the efficiency curve. There are different types of transferable LC. Usually, they are segregated at the three types of transferable letter of credit. Sometimes the first beneficiaries uses the LC, the whole LC. First time, number one, when the first beneficiaries uses the LC to obtain the second LC for the actual supplier of the goods, and the supplier actual supply of goods. And here, the first beneficiaries partially transfer the LC in favor to the second beneficiaries, and second beneficiaries making or manufacturing the goods and ready for the shipment, packing, and finally done the shipment, but the document prepared submitted to the first beneficiaries, and finally when first beneficiaries is submitted the document by the transferring bank for the collection. And finally the final procedure whenever is received by the transferring bank, then the portion according to their contract and settle the payment. Number two, when the partial proceeds are transferred to the multiple parties, such as when the buyer purchases the goods from the multiple suppliers. Sometimes the first beneficiaries, when the buyer purchases the goods from multiple suppliers are under a simple LC, single LC. When the entire proceeds of the LC is transferred to the second beneficiaries, who can forward the original amount of the original beneficiaries and collect the fund via the transferring bank. Number one, the transfer letter of credit, the entire proceeds may be transferred, the partial transfer, or the first beneficiaries hold the power to receive the payment from the buyer. These three types of transfer letter of credit. And what are the who are the parties who directly involved in the transfer letter of credit, and what their roles and the responsibility. Actually, the three types of parties are involved. Number one, the importer, the exporter, and the intermediary party. Sometimes they may be take. Importer is responsible for providing the necessary financing and for the ensuring that the correct terms and conditions is stated in the LC. Whereas the exporter is responsible for the shipping of the goods in accordance with the terms of the LC and for providing all the necessary documentation to support the transfer according to the term and condition of the LC. And finally, the intermediary parties, it may be banks or it may be brokers. Other parties involved in the transfer of the funds who are responsible for ensuring that the process is carried out smoothly and without the complication. These are the parties and the rules and responsibility. Now the question is, what are the terms and conditions for issuing the LC transfer? During the transfer the LC, as per UCP 600, the transfer credit must accurately reflect the terms and conditions of the credit, and including the information which is mentioned in during the transfer the LC, and if any, in with the exception of the amount of the credit, the unit price stated thereon, the expiry date, the presentation period of the presentation, and the latest shipment date of or the given period of the shipment. Any or all of which may be reduced on the curtain. Now, the percentage of for which the insurance coverage must be affected by the increase to provide the amount of the cover stipulated in the credit or these articles. The name of the first beneficiaries may be substituted for that of an applicant in the credit. If the name of the applicant is specifically required by the credit, to appear in any document other than the invoice. Such a requirement must be reflected in the transfer of credit. Presentation of the documents by or on behalf of the second beneficiaries must be made to the transferring bank. And now, before the LC transfer, what are the due diligence? Or what are the legal frameworks? And legal frameworks is typically divided into two types: and the global due diligence and the domestic due diligence. Global due diligence reference is the UCPT 600, 600 article number 38A, B, C, and D. And this article is finally endorsed by the central bank. So it's also act as a local or domestic due diligence. Number one, the article number 38A, a bank is under no obligation to transfer the credit except to extent and the manner of the expression. I have already mentioned this with the 600. These are the particularly mentioned in the article number 38 A, B, C, and D regarding regarding the transfer letter of credit. And as a banker, we should follow this article terms and condition. And whenever issuing banks issued the LC as per the article number 38 of UCBTC, it is treated that or considered that the banker has to follow the global due diligence. Now, the operational opening and the operational process of the transfer letter of credit. First of all, an agreement is conducted between the buyer and the supplier. That means exporter and an importer. Sometimes it may be the potential intermediary. Parties agree to use the transferable letter of credit. I have already mentioned that. And number two, the issuance of the LC. So, as per the term and condition of the transfer letter of credit, the contract conducted between the exporter and importer or the potential intermediary parties, the applicant, that means importer, goes to his or her bank in order to, with the request to issue an letter of credit or transfer letter of credit. So, the importer bank, that means the issuing bank, issues an LC as per the request of the applicant in favor to the exporter or the with the terms whichever is specified in the LC. Number three, the LC is advised to the nominated bank of the intermediary parties or the exporter to request the transfer the LC. And as per the LC terms and conditions, the exporter goes to his or her banks with the transfer letter of credit which is issued by the issuing bank and transfer the LC procedure to the another beneficiaries and whichever is known to the transferring bank. And transferring bank finally approved and notice that, and the issuing bank approves the request and notifies all the relevant parties of the transfer. And finally, the payment and shipment is settled and the good is received, and finally the operational activities is completed and the goods is shipped from the exporter to the importer. And after receiving the goods by the importer, then the importer payment is conducted or transfer the funds from for the payment purpose. And now the working process of the transfer letter of credit. First of all, the issuance of the transferable credit favoring a middleman first time the first beneficiary by the issuing bank. or maybe exporter, but the exporter capacity is the beyond of the order. And whenever the exporter manufacturing capacity beyond the order is beyond the capacity of the exporter, then the exporter is further searching to the another manufacturer for making or manufacture the goods. And sometimes it may be middleman or the brokerage or the buying house who has no manufacturing capacity. So they searching to the actual manufacturer or actual exporter. Number two, then the issue of the transferable credit is by the transferring bank in favor to the actual suppliers from the first beneficiary to second beneficiaries in reduced amount at the request of the first beneficiaries. I know it. And the second beneficiaries finally arrange the goods, arrange the manufacturing or packing or or shipment of the goods. And after shipment of the goods, the first second beneficiary is making the documents and present the documents to the transferring bank. And the transferring bank finally forward the documents to the issuing bank after substitution of the first beneficiary's invoice and the DAP. Substitution the first beneficiary's invoice and the draft. Actually, as the transfer letter of credit first received by the first beneficiaries, say $1,000, but in it transferred the second beneficiaries at 80 US dollar. And whenever the second beneficiary is manufacturing the goods, the shipment of the goods after shipment, they present the bill or invoice amount is $800. So the transferring bank actually submitted the bill $100. So they substitute the invoice by the first beneficiaries. I actually mentioned here after the substitution of the first beneficiary invoice draft. And then the transferring bank receives the payment from the issuing bank, and the second beneficiary gets its portion, and the first beneficiary receives the rest amount. These are the way to settle these are the way to issue the of transfer of letter of credit and to finally settle the payment among the different type of beneficiaries, that means first beneficiaries and the second beneficiaries. Actually, this is the transferable letter of credit which is actually issued by the issuing bank, and the issuing bank must be willing to issue a transfer letter of credit, and importer must provide the sufficient credit ordinance to support the LC. And after receiving the goods, the exporter ready the goods for the shipment, and after shipment, they makes the documents, and the documents is the primary requirement for collection of the bill or the export proceeds. So he has to make some necessary documents of whichever is stated or stipulated by the letter of credit, and as per the term and condition of the transfer letter of credit, the exporter prepare the documents, and finally they make the documentation. And among the document is the commercial invoice, and the contract is the very significant to support the issuance of the transfer letter of credit. And finally, the signature and approvals on the documents by the issuer or the delinquent parties. All the parties are involved must agree to the terms of the transferable LC and sign the necessary documents for its issuance. And during the transfer of letter of transfer the LC, the transferring bank has to keeping the following records. Number one, the date of the LC transfer, the LC number, export LC number, first beneficiaries LC. That means first beneficiaries details, transfer LC beneficiaries detail, issuing bank details, original LC value, and the amount of the value whichever is transferred, and finally the balance of value. These are the information which has to keep the record by the transferring bank. And now I wanted to get an example. I want to get an example to for example, you are advising bank of the following MT 720, where the important field number 20B from form of the documentary credit actually is the irrevocable transfer letter of credit. And field 40E applicable rules UCPTC latest version Field 50 regarding the applicant, the details of the applicant, details 59, details of the beneficiaries, field 41A available with by bank X by the negotiation. Whichever is mentioned by a specific bank by the exporter or the as per the contract. Field 559 beneficiaries details. 59 beneficiaries details. Now the question is that can you act as a transferring bank? Who can act as a transferring bank? And does the separate authorization is required? These are the questions. Who is the answer is given beside this box. And transferring bank, first of all, we should know transferring bank. Transferring means a nominated bank that transfers the credit or in the credit available with any bank or a bank that is specifically authorized by the issuing bank to transfer they transfer the credit. And the issuing bank may be a transferring bank sometimes. Case study, the first beneficiaries is going to particularly transfer the LC with the substitute of the document. The expiry place of the 700 MT 720 in Hong Kong. The second beneficiary is located in the Vietnam. Can the first beneficiary keep the expiry place of Hong Kong? Answers in the MT 700 answers. First beneficiary can keep the expiry place in Hong Kong. Yeah. Answer is yes, it can, if possible. Number two, can the first beneficiary send the expiry date place of Vietnam empty? Yes, it can. Reference Article 38J of the UCP 600. MT 720 is available with any bank. Can the MT also available with any bank? Yes. These are the typical transferable letter of credit. I have already mentioned the format, and I see the SWIFT MT 722. Here the transaction reference number, here the credit number, and receiving bank, sender bank, sometimes the first beneficiaries, second beneficiaries information. I have already mentioned. These are the list of the documents, and this is the additional condition. And here that 78 how to settle the payment. This is all about my transfer letter of credit opening and the operational procedure, or so with the domestic and the global due diligence. That's all of my. This is all about of my video.